It's one of the largest investigations in Canadian history, but 20 years later, the case of a 4-year-old boy who went missing in Victoria remains unsolved.
No, doesn't get any easier. It's just hard to believe that it's 20 years. It just feels like it was yesterday.
I'm a little better now, but I got to tell you, for many years, I had trouble sleeping over this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome. Welcome to my true crime corner of the internet. And if you've never been here before, I cover true crime cases, and all of the cases that I cover are a little bit older, little less talked about, more on the vintage side. So if that's something you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click that subscribe button. It looks like this, and maybe turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. Today, we are going to be discussing one of the most well-known Canadian missing persons cases. It has been many moons since I have discussed a case coming from the land of our northern neighbors, but I do have a very interesting case for you all today. But before we get into the actual case, we do have a quick word from today's sponsor, and today's sponsor is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that has thousands upon thousands of classes that allow your creativity to flourish. It's a place where you can interact with fellow creatives, where you are able to enhance current skills and develop new ones. Skillshare is a membership with meaning. You can dive into such productivity classes as animation, graphic design, illustration, music, photography, or even help build your business with such classes as business analytics and marketing. Creative challenges and productivity classes are a great way to structure your free time and set some achievable and rewarding goals for yourself. So whether you're trying to subside current boredom, manage some stress, focus on some healthcare through learning, or just join a community of people with similar interests, Skillshare is a place for you. The class that I recently dove into in this past month is called Designing the Life You Want: 4 Exercises for Clarity and Motivation by YouTuber Michelle B. Her class is designed to take you through different exercises to help you clear your mind and find direction in life, a direction that you feel motivated to be headed in. It's the perfect class to take if you've been feeling in a rut lately, and the class also comes with a downloadable workbook, which makes you feel, of course, more connected to the class than just watching someone through a computer screen. If you want to try out Skillshare yourself, the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description of today's video will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. Skillshare is an amazing service, and they definitely helped me get through a lot of my boredom last year in 2020 and take that boredom and turn it into something positive. So thank you, Skillshare, for that. And thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring another one of my videos. With all of that being said, let's get right into the case. This is the unsolved disappearance of Michael Dunahee. Michael Wayne Dunahee was born on May 12th, 1986 in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, to parents Bruce and Crystal Dunahee. During March of 1991, he was about 2 months shy of turning 5 years old, and it was Michael, his 2 parents, and his younger sister Caitlin, who was about 6 months old at the time. Bruce and Crystal were loving parents who adored their children and couldn't wait to see them grow up through the years. But unfortunately, they were robbed of that when it came to Michael. This tragic story begins on March 24th of 1991. It was a very windy Sunday in Victoria, British Columbia, and Michael's mother had a flag football game at Blanchard Elementary School. So the family loaded up their family vehicle and headed to the school, arriving at around 12:30 p.m. When they arrived at the school, Michael asked his mother if he could go over to the school playground while she was playing flag football. The playground was located near the field on the other side of the parking area, so his parents would have a good view of him while there, but for some reason, Crystal had a very strange feeling. Call it mother's intuition, if you will, but she felt something was off. She figured she was just being overprotective, that there was nothing to worry about. And she told Michael he could go to the playground and play, but to not leave the area and to wait for his dad, who would be right over to watch him while he played. The Dunahees had arrived at the elementary school at 12:30 p.m., and by 1 p.m., authorities had shown up and everybody in the area was helping look for Michael, because when Michael's father went over to the playground of the elementary school, Michael was gone. Authorities from the Victoria Police Department showed up and were searching around the area, and they couldn't find anything. The entire game paused. Everyone there at the school was helping in the search, but Michael was nowhere to be found. Over 50 people were looking for the boy that afternoon, but there was nothing. Nothing was left behind. There were no little shoe prints to follow. The 4-year-old disappeared, and his disappearance would turn into one of the biggest searches in Canadian history. Due to how insanely fast he vanished, authorities and his parents were quick to come to the conclusion that the boy had been abducted. He didn't just wander off. Michael was a toddler, but he listened very well to his parents, and if his mother told him to stay somewhere and wait for his father, he would have. Someone had to have spotted the boy, snatched him, and left. Bruce and Crystal were living a parent's worst nightmare, but they held hope he would be found. They didn't want to give up on their little boy. Within no time, there were about 15 Victoria police officers working on the case, and word about the case spread insanely fast. It was immediately classified as an abduction, so everyone was on the lookout for the boy. As word spread, more and more tips came into the police department. At the beginning of the case, it was about 100 tips every hour, and this was 1991. So they were writing down every lead on paper. They were completely swamped, but they knew the first few days of an abduction are very important because the more time that passes, the more time there is for something to happen to the person, or the farther away they could be taken. Tips from all over Canada and all over the United States started coming in. People claiming they spotted the boy in the local area of Victoria all the way to New York City and New Jersey. One of the first main leads that was followed in this case was a very vague one, but it was a report from someone that a man in his 40s to 50s was seen in the area around the time of Michael's disappearance, that he looked a little suspicious and was driving a brown van. That was pretty much all of the information authorities were given. There were a few other leads that came in about suspicious individuals, so authorities thought they could possibly try to bait whoever it was in. And to do this, they basically staged an entire scenario. They went to the park and they had Michael's parents there, they had everybody who was in the flag football game there, and they just went throughout the entire events in that 30-minute frame where Michael went missing. They had everybody act completely the same as they did in that 30 minutes. But nothing really came of this. Nobody came around the area who looked suspicious, and authorities figured that even if it didn't bait the person in who was responsible for Michael's abduction, they thought that maybe somebody there that day would remember something else about what happened, but no new information came from this. I know we hear this a lot, but this area in Canada was not an area where stuff like this happened. It was a family-oriented area. Everyone kind of knew each other or knew of each other. Parents looked out for each other's children. It was a caring environment, and people knew that. There must have been someone in the area that took advantage of that. They must have known people in this area weren't constantly on the lookout for possible danger, and they must have capitalized on that. From my research, authorities and the family of Michael never really suspected anyone there at the school that day to be involved in Michael's disappearance. It was a women's flag football game, and none of the members on either teams seemed to be missing, and none of their husbands were, none of the teenagers, none of the other children. Everybody seemed to be there that day. Unless there was someone there that day who was on the team and one of their family members or husbands was there and then wasn't there after Michael disappeared and the person just kept quiet about that. This is something that we are uncertain of, but many members of Victoria refer to the day that Michael went missing as the day that the community lost its innocence. This community in British Columbia was never the same after that day in March of 1991. As years passed by, Michael's case became almost like a movement. If you lived in the western part of Canada in the 1990s, chances are you have seen his face somewhere. His case was featured on television programs, his face was put on milk cartons, posters were on every corner. You may have even seen his photo on a bulletin board with other missing children while you were checking out at the local supermarket. But just like most cases, with the passing of time, sometimes new information or leads pop up, some leading to a final resolution for the mystery, and some, again, hitting a brick wall. During the year of 2006, about 15 years after his disappearance, leads came into the Victoria Police Department that someone living in the interior of British Columbia looked a lot like Michael Dunahee, who would have been about 19 or 20 at this time. It was said this individual had been living there since the early 90s. Authorities tracked him down, conducted a DNA test, and it wasn't a match. This person was not Michael Dunahee. And this was the first person in a line of people to come that would have their DNA tested because people thought they could be Michael Dunahee, and in the end, all of them fell through. In the year 2009, a possible suspect arose in this case for the first time. A 62-year-old man named Vernon Seitz, who was a barber in St. Francis, Wisconsin. He told his psychiatrist that he had taken the life of a teenager when he was 12 years old in the year of 1959. He also told his psychiatrist that he knew of another child killing, that he was involved in killing another child at some time. This was something that he never went into any more detail about, but Seitz claimed that when he took the life of the teenager when he was 12 years old, he shot this teenager, and he was made to do this by his abductor. He said that he didn't want to take this teenager's life, but he had been abducted by somebody who was an evil person, and this person made him shoot this 14-year-old. Authorities looked into his claims and could not find any evidence to prove what he said was true. The thing about Seitz, though, is that he had an extremely disgusting fascination with missing and murdered children, specifically boys. This man passed away from natural causes, and his home was searched, and the things they found, mostly in his basement, were some of the worst things I've ever read about. If you want to learn more, I will link an article down below because I personally don't even want to go into the things that they found because it makes my stomach churn. This man also was extremely obsessed with, in particular, Jacob Wetterling, who was a boy who was abducted and murdered in Minnesota in 1989, but his remains were not located and his case was not solved until 2016. When I say that this man, which I hate even calling him a man, was obsessed with Jacob Wetterling, I mean he was obsessed with him. He had plastered photos of him on his basement wall. He had videotapes of news reportings of the case. This man also, in the very early 1990s, went to Jacob Wetterling's mother and tried to convince her that he was a psychic and that he wanted to help her solve her son's case. And she was smarter than that, and she politely declined. She knew that something was up with this man, and she knew very quickly after talking to him that this was somebody she did not want to be involved with. How this man, though, connects to Michael Dunahee's case is that police in Milwaukee found a missing persons poster of Michael in Seitz's basement. They thought there might have been some connection, but nothing more came of this. He passed away, so they were never able to question him about Michael's disappearance, and without a body, there was nothing else to go off of. When it comes to this man, most people think Michael's case was something he had no involvement in, but just another case that he was obsessed with. No solid proof has ever tied this man to the disappearance of Michael Dunahee. Vernon Seitz claimed that he had taken the life of this 14-year-old in 1959, but they were never able to prove if this was true or not. They were never able to find out this teenager's name to be able to look back and see if this person was really shot in 1959. There is no legitimacy to this story. There was also no proof that he ever took the life or was involved in the killing of another child. This was just something that he said. Authorities and his psychiatrist were never able to come to the conclusion of whether he had actually been involved in taking anyone's life during his time being alive, or this was something that he just made up. This man had a dark and twisted obsession, a very sick fascination with boys, young boys who have gone missing or who have been murdered. So it is not completely out of the question that he just made up these two stories because he wanted to tell his psychiatrist and pretend that he was involved in either a disappearance or the murder of a boy. 2 years later, during the year of 2011, authorities tested the DNA of a man from Chase, British Columbia, who was thought to possibly have been Michael, and again, this was not a match. And 2 years after that, in 2013, a man from Surrey, British Columbia, posted on a message board how he was being pursued by police because he had striking resemblances to the missing boy from 1991. This man said that he had moved around a lot when he was little. His mother had passed away in the same year of 2013, and he had no contact with his father since the age of 10, so asking either of them about him possibly being Michael Dunahee was completely out of the question. He said that he always knew his birthday as December 9th of 1986, which was the same year that Michael Dunahee was born. Now, a lot of people closely examined a photo of this man and said that there was no way that he could be Michael Dunahee. They just looked at his nose, his eyes, his teeth, and were basically saying this was not him. And there were other people that looked at the photo of him, the main photo that was posted online, and said, you know, this possibly could be Michael. So it was very 50-50. The family of Michael Dunahee hoped that possibly this could be Michael, but they were scared to get their hopes up because they had gotten their hopes up so many times throughout the years. Michael's grandma, Barbara, told the Star that she was praying the man was her missing grandson, especially for her son and daughter-in-law's sake. In the end, a DNA test was conducted and the 26-year-old was not Michael Dunahee. Then, just last year in 2020, a new lead arose in this case, and this lead popped up out of absolutely nowhere, and it came from an app that is just all the rage in today's time, and that is TikTok. Yep, a new lead in the case of Michael Dunahee came from TikTok. A user by the name of Stranger Danger came across a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt while he was deep diving in the ocean. He originally put this short video on TikTok of him finding the shirt, but then uploaded a full video on YouTube discussing it. He told his viewers that this shirt was distributed in the mid-1980s and said for people to contact him when it came to missing people who vanished while wearing such a shirt. People immediately brought up that Michael Dunahee was last seen wearing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt. Authorities were notified and looked into it, and it was discovered that this was not the same one Michael was wearing the day that he vanished. Could this random Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt found in the ocean, the deep depths of the ocean, that looks like it was possibly burned, could it be connected to another mystery, another missing persons case or murder? That's something we don't know, but we do know that it has no connection to Michael's case. In 2 months, it will be 30 years since Michael Dunahee vanished from that playground, and in all these years, police have never come across any new information to help locate him or his remains. None of the information that has ever come forward have gotten them even one step further in this case. And when I say that the Dunahee family endured hell through the years, I mean it. For one, Michael's younger sister Caitlin grew up, and during her younger years, she always knew she had a brother, but she was too young to realize what happened and where he went. When she started going to school, other kids would often ask her about her brother, and it only just added to her confusion. Michael's room was kept the same as it was in 1991, and Caitlin would often go into his room and play with his toys, just thinking about how fun it would be if her older brother was there with her. It always felt like to her that there was just like a missing puzzle piece in the puzzle of her life. Caitlin's parents were very protective with her because of what happened to Michael. The only time she was really out of their supervision was when she was at a friend's house and she was under another parent's supervision, or she was at school. Caitlin told Victoria News, "I feel like she," referring to her mother, "poured everything she had into me, but just kind of always being in that shadow. I knew there was something else on their mind. There was always this other thing looming over me, and knowing that there was an older brother that wasn't there, who was on my parents' mind, not just me, it was weird." In that same article, Caitlin goes on to say, "I think my mom has always been able to put her thoughts aside. She's been able to clear her mind of it and continue moving forward with life. She hasn't forgotten, that's for sure, but she's able to push through it. My dad has struggled pushing his thoughts aside and wears his heart on his sleeve. I can see his pain." Michael's parents are both still alive in today's time and still work to try to solve his case in any way that they can. Crystal Dunahee is extremely hard on herself because she was the one who, of course, told Michael that he was allowed to go to the playground. And she says that that is the most difficult thing for her to deal with. But of course, she had no idea what was going to happen that day. And I think that that is one of the most heartbreaking parts of missing children's cases, is that parents feel so much grief throughout the years, and it's a grief that they shouldn't have, because we should be able to let our children just go to the playground and play. But unfortunately, we live in a world where there are horrible people walking around. Not only did Crystal and Bruce Dunahee go through so much pain, grief, and regret, they also went through absolute torment because of heartless people. They dealt with something so many parents have dealt with when it comes to a missing child, and that is prank calls. Yes, many different people would call their home and pretend to be Michael or pretend to know where he is, one even wanting a $10,000 ransom. All of these calls had absolutely no connection to the actual case, just horrible people wanting to make things worse for a hurting family. To say that this family has dealt with a roller coaster of emotions through the years would be an absolute understatement. I think it's just one of those situations where even though there were times where they wanted to give up, everything together just fueled their desire to find out what happened or who was responsible. The Dunahee family has done so much over the years, and there was no way for me to do this video and cover this case properly without highlighting some of those aspects as well. For one, Crystal became an advocate for missing children's issues in British Columbia, and she has also served as the president of Child Fund British Columbia, which is a non-profit charitable organization dedicated to the personal safety of children. In the year 2002, she was also a huge voice in support of bringing the Amber Alert to the province of British Columbia. If you don't know what an Amber Alert is, it's an emergency response system that decimates information about a missing person, usually a child, by media broadcasting or electronic roadway signs, and it originated in the United States in 1996. Crystal believes that if such a thing as an Amber Alert was around in 1991, that her son may have possibly been located not long after his abduction. For real, the amount of things that the Dunahee family and especially Crystal have done over the years to try to help other missing children's cases and cases of children who have been murdered, remarkable. They have done such incredible work. This reminds me a lot of the Polly Klaas case because her family did a lot as well after her abduction and murder. A lot of parents may become angry at the world and shut off, and of course you can't blame them for that because people react to situations differently. But Michael Dunahee's family definitely took that anger and turned it into selflessness, and they just wanted to help as many cases out there as they possibly can. In the year 2011, Crystal also was awarded the Order of British Columbia for her work as an advocate for missing children, which she was beyond touched to receive. Other than all of that, there is also an annual charity event held every year in British Columbia called the Michael Dunahee Keep the Hope Alive Fun Run. It's a family 5K run or walk, and it helps raise money for the Child Fund. Michael Dunahee's sister Caitlin is in charge of it every year, and the family just hopes that while they're waiting for something to come of their child's case, that they can help other children as well.
When 4-year-old Michael Dunahee disappeared, his sister Caitlin was just a baby. Too young to remember a brother, she continues to grieve.
Just wish I'd gotten to know him.
Now last year in 2020, because of COVID, there wasn't a 5K run held, but it was really sweet because police did show their support by still driving down the path that the run would have taken place. And it just shows that even after so long, Michael's case is still so thought about in this community. Michael Wayne Dunahee was last seen on March 24th of 1991. He had straight blonde hair and blue eyes. At the time, he was 3 feet tall and weighed about 50 pounds. He was last seen wearing multicolored rugby pants, a white Ninja Turtles t-shirt, a blue cloth hooded jacket with a red zipper and cuffs, and blue canvas shoes with red and orange trim. There is currently a $100,000 reward for anyone who has any information about Michael's case that leads to solving it. Michael would be 34 years old in today's time. If you have any information about his case, you are urged to contact the Victoria Police Department at 250-995-7654. Remember that you can stay anonymous. When I was researching this case, I thought to myself how Michael's case is literally the epitome of a case where someone vanished without any trace. There is absolutely no trace when it comes to his case, and that is what is so spine-chilling and scary about it and about this world in general. It's cases like this that make parents watch their children like hawks. Still, in today's time, after all these years, his mother and father have kept the same phone number. They never changed it because that's the phone number that Michael had memorized. Michael's case goes down in Canadian history as one of the biggest missing persons searches they have ever had, and one of the biggest mysteries of British Columbia. There have been over 11,000 tips in this case, and none of them have turned into anything. They are not waiting for just another lead. They are waiting for the lead that finally gets them to where they need to be. There have never been any solid suspects, and according to people at the elementary school that day, right near the park, no one saw anyone take Michael with their own eyes. His family often thinks about how different the case may have been handled if it happened today with the advancements in technology, from Amber Alerts to surveillance cameras to computers to better sort out tips. If that technology was around back then, they think the case would have panned out differently. I did quite a bit of digging around online when it comes to this case, and I personally couldn't find any information when it comes to John Does, and any John Does that they thought throughout the years could possibly be Michael, that they possibly tested the DNA of and compared it to Michael's DNA and ruled them out as being Michael, or any John Does that they are going to compare the DNA of to Michael's DNA in the future. When it came to John Does, I couldn't find really any information about that. They did question so many people in this community and nobody acted suspicious. There was nobody who was really under their radar, but I do genuinely have to agree with a large group of people who have looked into this case that say that the person responsible for Michael's disappearance and possible murder, there's a high chance that it was somebody from the community. I personally, and this is just a personal opinion, I feel like it was a local who lived around the area and who knew that this flag football game was going to be going on, and they knew that there were going to be children there, and they showed up and saw a child that was not under anyone's supervision at the time, and they took the opportunity and they abducted him as fast as they possibly could. I did spend quite a lot of time looking at the picture of the elementary school and just trying to get a rundown of the area and seeing what possibly happened. And if you do look at the park location where the playground is, which is not a very big location, it's a small playground, you do see that there are a couple of school classroom portables right next to that area. The person could have been behind the portable, went out real quick, grabbed him, went behind the portable, and then went the other way. That's a huge possibility. Or possibly the person was parked along the street right next to the playground, got out of their car, went over, grabbed him, took him back to the vehicle, and rode off. But I feel like this is less of a possibility because there was that fence there. I didn't come across any reports of anybody in that immediate area seeing anything suspicious, as in a person who was maybe walking down the street with Michael, or somebody who was at a gas station with Michael, or were at a restaurant with Michael. I couldn't find anything about that. I feel like if there were any leads like that, they would have been huge leads in this case and definitely looked into. Most of the leads in this case that I was able to come across were very vague, just like the sighting of the man who was in the brown van that looked suspicious. I also was not able to come across any cases of missing children or cases of children being murdered around that area around that time. It's like Michael's disappearance happened and it was just a case all of its own. It's gotten to me, it's gotten to me. This case has gotten to me because there's just nothing. But all in all, that is the case of Michael Dunahee. Thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn about it and to watch my video. And if you're not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button because I'm here every single week with new true crime videos, vintage true crime videos. Keep that in mind. Leave some love down in the comments for the family of Michael Dunahee, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.